Hey, everybody, welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast. This being Wednesday, August 4th, Season 3, Episode 7. How about that?
Back again.
Yeah, we just did an episode yesterday. That was the kind of surprise. I can't say it was a really bonus episode because it was really a makeup from last week. But it was a surprise episode because most of you probably didn't expect it yesterday. And then again today. How about that? And Jacob and I are planning on doing a second episode later this afternoon.
Yep.
3 in 2 days. Holy smokes.
Yeah, it should be fun.
People are going to get tired of us.
Yeah. No one's logging in. That's why. No.
3 hours of content in 2 days.
Overload.
Ain't nobody got no time for that. Who's going to be the first to comment? Who do we got? 20 people watching. Let's see. 18. No, whoa, jumped up. 33 on Facebook, 2 on YouTube. Welcome, everybody. Dean Cloud on Facebook, first comment. Great show last night. Bet this one today will be great, too. Thank you so much, Dean. Appreciate that. Michael, hello, sir. Welcome. Good to have you guys. Wow, 41 viewing now. 38 on Facebook, 3 on YouTube. Very cool. Sean from Centennial, Colorado. Welcome, Sean. Bobby. Hey, Bobby. Regular. Mark. Also another regular. Welcome. Hanny. Hey, buddy. Don't you got like work to do or something? What's up, buddy? Bob from Prescott, Arizona. Did I get that right, Bob? How about that? Prescott. Right? Not Prescott. For those that don't know. I've been to Prescott. Hey, Gary, welcome. So, guys, we're going to, without further ado, we're going to jump right into this. We got a bunch of you watching, so no need to. Usually we do a little, shoot the breeze at the beginning. Just that's mainly to give people a chance to see notifications. So, good number of you on here already. So let's get after it. We got justified saves on the lineup for today, so it'll be a good episode as we break down recent defensive gun uses. So, be a fun episode. Welcome, Rose from Pennsylvania. Welcome. I don't know if this is your first time. I don't know if I recall seeing your name show up in the comments before. So welcome, Rose from Pennsylvania. Well, guys, let's do this thing. So the way this goes is we are live, but when I say it's time to begin the recorded audio portion of the show, that's from that point forward is what actually gets published to the podcast feed. If you aren't able to catch us on the live video feeds on Facebook and YouTube each time, just know that you can use your favorite mobile app for podcast listening. Search Concealed Carry Podcast and you'll find us almost certainly. I think we're on virtually every platform. So, and Matthew, I am detecting a little bit of lag. So it's a not the best time to do this since we got everybody watching live, but I may need to back out and come back in to see if I can improve my connection here.
All right, you going to do that now?
Yeah. Give me just sorry, folks. Matthew will entertain you with old
do a song and dance
jokes. And I'm just gonna back out, and sometimes that's what we found works best is to just back out and come back in, see if we can improve the connection. So I'll be right back.
Normally when Riley logs out, things get better. But yeah, well, he'll come back in. But I just want to let you guys know we've been going through a bunch of DGUs, defensive gun uses. I go through these lists of defensive gun uses every month, and this month there were like a ton. And I don't know if you guys ever check out the show notes, but if you go into the show notes, there's a bunch of defensive gun uses that don't make it into like the live show that we're talking and gets recorded. So if you check out the show notes, there's more in there, probably a half dozen, maybe 10 of them. But I've gone through about 50 of them this month alone, and there were just so many different DGUs to choose from, some really good ones, probably some that you guys have seen. I know we talked about a couple yesterday, but the one in LA guy, the car pulls up and the one kid with the two girls is standing there and they engage. We're going to talk about that. A dad who gets shot by his daughter's boyfriend. Hey, Janelle, New Orleans. Awesome. Yeah. So dad gets shot by his daughter's boyfriend. That's a pretty crazy one. There are some what not to do's. We always pull up a couple situations where defensive gun uses didn't go the way they should have, or our concealed carrier or gun wielding person didn't quite do what was, we'll say, generally accepted. So we'll talk about a couple of those. There's one. Let me see. What do we have? We have one from Washington D.C. Surprising. A couple from California where home invasion, where two guys came in and somebody had to defend their home against two guys in California. Yeah, a drunk guy who ends up getting shot. So if any of those, hey, Tony from Missouri, cool. Any of those ring a bell, we're going to be talking about those. So yeah, it's going to be a good show. And I think Ron is back.
Yeah, I'm back. Hopefully things working better now. I mean, so far so good. Yeah, just better that I've addressed that now before we actually got into the official episode. So thanks for your patience, guys. All righty, let's do it. Are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right, in 3, 2, 1. This is the Concealed Carry Podcast, Season 3, Episode 7. And welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network, brought to you by XS Sights. Today is Wednesday, August 4th, 2021. And I am your host, Riley Bowman, joined today by producer and co-host Matthew Maruster.
I feel like it's like a Johnny Carson introduction. I got to come from behind a curtain or something.
Well, that one was a little lame. I mean, I could have accentuated it a little bit more. And also today we have producer and co-host Matthew Maruster.
Yeah, you could just slide it in. We don't have to get everybody riled up. They'll probably start tuning out as soon as they hear I'm on the show again. So.
Welcome everybody to another fantastic show. Happy to be with you on this fine Wednesday. We are doing Justified Save stories today. So this is a popular episode. Every time we ask people about the podcast and what episodes they like the most, we usually hear one of two things: either specific people that we've interviewed that they really enjoyed, or Justified Save episodes. Mm-hmm. Occasionally people will be like, oh, I love the legislative news updates and that kind of thing. But Justified Saves is what we call defensive gun uses. And we do these once a month now. We used to do them more frequently, but now we do them once a month. And we got a bunch of great stories to share with you today. The whole point of this is, what can we learn from other people's successes and failures? Mm-hmm. So you're going to hear both of those things today. And I'll tell you, a lot of times the Justified Save stories that we cover have both successes and failures. And that's probably not unusual at all. And, even when we look at things like officer involved shootings, a lot of times there's well, this and this really went well, but there were some things that could have been done better. And that's just true of anything in life. We can almost always do better, right? Mm-hmm. The big thing is we want to make sure that we avoid making big enough mistakes that we land ourselves behind bars. And that's where I think these Justified Save story analyses are a big help, hopefully, to you. So you go, okay, I want to make sure I avoid doing this or that, so I stay out of trouble. That's the big thing here.
Yeah. And if you're new to the format or the show, I know sometimes we've had comments or emails that, hey, why are you guys just Monday morning quarterbacking? Anybody can pick apart videos and stuff. Sure, that's certainly possible. What we're trying to do is just bring them to light so we can learn from it. We're not here to Monday morning armchair quarterback any decisions. Just try to learn from them, the bad things and the good things, and make people more aware that firearms are being used to by people to defend themselves every day. So
yep,
it's kind of the point.
You got it, guys. Today's episode is sponsored and brought to you by our title sponsor, XS Sights. xssights.com is where you can find them. Longtime listeners are familiar with my fanboyness for the XS Sights F8 night sights. I think they're a great choice for your common defensive handgun. I run them on a couple of 320s. I've got them on a couple of my Glocks that I used to carry a lot more than I do now, but now I'm more of the 320. But fantastic sights, high visibility. They have the new R3D sights, a little bit lower profile than the F8s, but all the great same high visibility, high contrast front sight, blacked out rear. The difference between the F8s and R3Ds is the F8s are what you would consider a figure 8 sight picture when you're using the night sight, when you're in low light, right? Because basically what you get is a blacked out rear sight during daylight hours, but in low light you get the tritium vial lighting up in the front sight, and you get a little tritium vial in the bottom of the rear notch. In the case of the F8s. On the R3Ds, they're very similar, and they look very similar from a sight picture perspective. Basically a blacked out rear, but in low light situations, you're going to see tritium vials on either side of the rear notch. And so combined with the front sight tritium vial, you're going to get basically a 3-dot, kind of that traditional 3-dot sight picture that most shooters are familiar with. I think they're both great sights. I still lean a little bit towards the F8s. I think they work a little bit better for me, just in terms of the way I visually perceive my sight pictures. And also XS Sights has other great options as well. Some people really like the big dots. I'm not as big a fan of the big dots, but a lot of people like them. Matthew, I think you've used them or still use them, right?
Yeah, I was using them. I broke one off my gun doing some stuff, but
I broke one.
yeah, I broke the front sight off, but
did you get it replaced?
I didn't. I couldn't find it.
Oh,
so, so that was the problem. But yeah, they're good. They're good at distance. Obviously, it covers up a little bit more of the target, but for self-defense sight, definitely usable.
You basically you can't miss the sights, especially for like 15-yard and in type work, which is gonna be pretty good for most people in most situations. You get out a little bit further, they're a little bit more difficult to shoot accurately with because the sights are a little bit bigger. I do pretty well with F8s, even out at 25 yards. I think I've probably shot them at 50 yards once or twice, but I've taken a couple of classes with the F8s, and where I was judged or measured. Like I had actually earned the top shooter award in a class that I shot with the F8 night sights in. And there was some, there was a variety of close up and fast shooting along with longer distance precision type stuff. And I was able to get the job done. So anyway, we love XS Sights. We are proud to have them as a sponsor of the podcast, xssights.com. Also, today's sponsor, go to concealedcarry.com gun law book to pick up a copy of the Legal Boundaries by State book. And by the way, we just are putting out a updated version because there's some new updates from a few states going into effect right now or in the next few weeks. That's one of the huge benefits of getting our Legal Boundaries by State book. This is our 50-state guide for firearms and carry laws across the United States of America for American gun owners. Highly recommend you have a copy of the Legal Boundaries by State book. A fantastic resource, very reasonably priced. And I'll tell you what, whether you buy the ebook only or you buy the physical copy of the book, you're going to get the ebook as well along with it. And that's hugely valuable because as soon as updates are released, you can always, you get the link sent to you. You can always plug that link in, bookmark it, save it, and pull up the latest version of the file. And lately, you're going to see some adjustments in there for Texas and their constitutional carry going into effect. There were some changes recently in the state of North Dakota, Nevada, I think. There's a couple others. There's a handful of changes in this most recent update. So check it out, guys. And if you don't have a copy of Legal Boundaries by State, again, go to concealedcarry.com/gun law book. It should be pretty easy to remember and plug into your browser and go pick yourself up a copy. It's like $20, nothing. Very, very, very good investment. Well, guys, let's get into our stories. Our first story, we got a top story out of Houston, Texas. Matthew, why don't you take it away for us? Give us the down low and dirty on this Houston dad who had to hold an intruder at gunpoint after catching him looking into daughter's window.
Yeah, this is a weird one. So, well, not weird, but you'll see how it plays out. Not quite as what you might have thought. So, Texas homeowner says he woke up in the middle of the night to find a stranger in his backyard. So here's what happens in the middle of the night. They are woken up. This guy named Umar, he has a wife and a 6-month-old daughter in the home. And the wife wakes him up, must have heard something outside, wakes him up, says, I think there's somebody in the backyard. So Umar, the husband, father, goes, says he pulls the curtain back and sees a dude looking at him through the window. So he runs outside and starts talking to the guy. Hey, what are you doing? And the guy's talking about running from gang members and they're chasing him and all kinds of stuff. And typically, what dudes that are high or whatever say when they're, running around backyards and trying to get into houses and stuff. So he says, 6 gang members are after me. And so Umar gets concerned. He's like, oh, well, I don't know, maybe they are. And I got a wife and a 6-year-old daughter in the home. Are 6 guys going to come down running through here with firearms? So they call the police, call 911. And this is, this is about 3 a.m. Okay. When they finally call 911, and this incident goes down, he holds the guy at gunpoint, tells him, hey, don't move, don't leave, and holds him at gunpoint. According to Umar, he waits 10 minutes, then he waits 15 minutes, then he waits 20 minutes, and still nobody's showed up. Nobody's shown up. The police haven't shown up. 47 minutes later, after the initial 911 call, apparently officers from Houston PD arrive on scene and take the dude into custody. So he's out there with this guy for 47 minutes. And, he's recognized or understandably frustrated. And apparently, according to this news, ABC 7, that HPD, Houston Police Department said that the delay was because they were very busy. They had a lot of calls for service at that time. It was 3 a.m, right? Like, could have been a busy night, but 47 minutes for a guy who is peeping into your home, in your yard, breached a fence, and you're holding the person at gunpoint. 47 minutes is kind of a long time. So turns out, they took him into custody, but the father doesn't feel, safe. Dude comes into his backyard. Not only that, but now he feels that, if I call for help, they're going to, they might not get here in time. So, yeah.
Okay. So a couple interesting things out of this story. Number one, the fact that, and this is a common theme, like you guys, longtime listeners, have heard this many times from us, but be careful with going outside of your home when you think there's something going on, whether you think someone's trying to break into your home, whether you think someone's on your property, whether you think someone's breaking into a vehicle or causing other property damage. It's usually advisable to not go out and try to see what's going on or confront anybody, right? Because doing so just simply increases personal risk to you, primarily physically, right? And so, like, that's the first big thing here is this guy, he confronts this. They keep. Funny thing is, this is, I think, a bit of a misnomer that they use in this article. They keep referring to this guy as an intruder, although he never actually like usually, and this is true even in a lot of state laws, that the word intruder is usually in reference to someone that breaks into the actual home or the dwelling or the residence. So that did not happen here. Let's be clear. Like this is just somebody that was in these people's backyard, which, mind you, I'm not saying like we should be okay with that, right? Like that's still concerning. It's still private property. That's still trespassing. There's good reason for concern there. But remember that under the law in virtually every state, the legal liability for you changes when you go from inside to outside of the dwelling, meaning that you have a much greater presumption of innocence and protection in terms of the use of force when you are inside your dwelling versus outside. And we got another story coming up here. I think it's even the next one that that highlights this very clearly.
Yep.
Okay, and really illustrates this point. So that's got to be, we got to recognize and understand that. The other thing is, depending on state law, depending on how your state statutes words things like citizens arrests, things to do with what's the word, detaining people. Like, you need to be really careful with situations like this, where this guy holds this backyard intruder at gunpoint until police can arrive 47 minutes later. Okay. It certainly has happened where aggressive prosecutors have gone after people because at the threat of deadly force, they held people against their will. Right? They have essentially effected an arrest via the use of deadly force. And I'm not saying that can't be done. It's going to depend on the state. It's going to depend on specific circumstances of the incident. And it's just generally not advisable because, again, we're increasing risk. And in this case, potentially legal risk or legal liability substantially. The chances of you fouling up somewhere and getting charged with something could be, part of the issue here. So that's a couple of things that really stood out to me with this story. The fact that this guy says, "Hey, I'm just trying to get away from these gang of dudes." That's concerning as all get out. Like, again, maybe get back in your house, make sure the home is secured. The man in the story said he was concerned. He was thinking about protecting his family, his wife, his daughter, especially when he heard about there may be a gang involved in all of this. Hanging out outside and keeping somebody at gunpoint is probably not advantageous for you if there's a gang roaming the neighborhood. Get in, lock crap down, take up a position of cover and advantage, and wait for help to arrive. And yeah, it took 47 minutes, which, it's unacceptable. At the same time, we've gone through this last year of city riots and calls for police being defunded, and crime is now on a significant rise as law enforcement departments are depleted in terms of resources and officers that many times are just leaving because they're dissatisfied with the job, because it's a toxic environment for them to continue working in, people that don't want them doing police work. So it's unacceptable it took that long, but at the same time, some of these departments are extremely shorthanded. So guys, get ready. That may be the new norm going forward for a while, until we see a swing the other way in terms of how law enforcement is viewed and perceived and actually treated or staffed and given resources. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, that's my analysis of this one.
Yeah. And just real quick to reiterate, like Tim asked a question. He said, without the details, was there a valid use of deadly force at gunpoint? And like sometimes we forget, pointing a gun at somebody or drawing a gun is a level of force, right? So what is that level of force being used to, against? What's the level of force of this person, or what's this person doing? It's a trespassing at maybe it's a peeping, but it's a trespassing at most at that point. So like it, and he does. The article doesn't say that he got arrested or anything. And sometimes people do things that are borderline illegal, but they don't end up getting arrested because they give them presumption, or they give them more leniency because they're the homeowner or whatnot. So just take this as a cautionary tale as we go into the next story.
Yep. So speaking of which, going to that next story, this one is of an intoxicated man. Happened in Morristown, Tennessee. And the headline is Morristown man shoots, kills intoxicated man outside his home. Report showed that the homeowner is actually the one that's charged in it. Well, obviously in the case of the intoxicated man who was shot, he did die, so he obviously couldn't be charged with anything. But the homeowner that shot and killed him has been charged with voluntary manslaughter, which is a Class C felony in Tennessee. So that's obviously serious, and he could go to prison for up to 15 years if convicted of that. We don't have a ton of details on this, but from what we do know, there was an initial 911 call involving an intoxicated person. So this usually goes something to the effect of, hey, there's a drunk man on my property, or he's, raising, a scene, causing a scene, shouting in obscenities, whatever, blah, 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 right? So you have an intoxicated person who did not live at the home where this took place at. And it sounds like the homeowner of that home probably confronted the intoxicated man. Again, he was on his property, so he maybe was trying to get him to leave or whatever. And so it escalated into a fight between the homeowner and the intoxicated person. And all we know is that the intoxicated man ended up getting shot in the head, and died at the scene. Could not be saved. So that's basically the details we have. Is likely drunk person on property, homeowner confronts him, turns into a fight or a struggle of some kind. Homeowner draws gun and shoots and kills this drunk man. Do you see why we caution you about going out of your home? Right? Because I can just about guarantee you that this person did not intend, like they didn't go out of their home thinking I'm going to end up shooting this guy. Like that was not part of the plan. But when we carry a gun for personal defense, okay, this is a big time responsibility. And we have to recognize that things can get out of hand, things can get out of control and go a different direction than what we anticipated or expected. And that and the challenge is if we are not well prepared in how to handle situations like that, and whether we're talking about the use of verbal judo, right? De-escalation techniques, maybe our hand-to-hand skills aren't that sharp, right? And suddenly we find ourselves in a tussle, and we don't know how to handle ourselves, and you might freak out in that moment. Here's the thing, and I've seen this happen a number of times in similar instances where the person carrying the gun doesn't have a lot of skill, especially skill outside of the use of the gun. Meaning they don't have some of the other soft skills of communication, of de-escalation, of hand-to-hand fighting and defense, combatives, right? And maybe aren't used to being in very high stress situations either, because it's not something that they're faced with in their day-to-day life. And it can get you amped up and maybe overwhelmed, and that leads to poor decision making potentially. And when you don't have any other option, you don't have OC spray, you don't have hand-to-hand skills, you can't get away fast enough, maybe you're older, retired, injured, crippled, whatever, and you wig out a little bit, not knowing what to do. And so the brain is going to reach for a solution, and you're carrying a gun. So suddenly the solution seems like it should be the gun. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, you've just shot a man. And the way the law and the investigators may see that and look at the presenting evidence may go, we don't know exactly what happened here. And all we know is we got a dead guy on the ground with no weapons on him. And the other guy who says they were in a fight.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, long monologue to say, and remember I said, like, this is a great example of, number one, be careful leaving the confines and safety and security of your home to handle problems. Be careful with that. All right. You got to be thinking all this ahead of time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's a month that's gone by, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, Riley, that we haven't covered a story about somebody leaving a place of safety to confront somebody. Now, they don't all end badly, but every time we try to, we point out that cautionary, like, anytime you leave your home, right? Like, you may end up being in a fight, you may end up getting killed, you may end up defending yourself, and you may end up going to jail. And like, this situation, we're like, oh, well, the guy is facing 3 to 15 years prison sentence. It very easily could have been him facing like death, because how many times do we cover somebody is disarmed, a concealed carrier or a gun owner is disarmed, and the gun is used against themselves, right? Like against that person. So this person could have easily ended up losing his life and not just, been in court. So I don't want to beat the dead horse, but this is something that I always try to include these, because it's sobering, and it should remind us each time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's go now to the next story, because I think, like you said, I think we covered that well enough and made the point.
Mm-hmm.
The next story is from foxnews.com. Louisiana dad shot and killed by teen who entered underage daughter's room through upstairs window, police say. This is an unusual event, to be sure. I'm going to let Matthew take the lead on this. So again, this happened in Zachary, Louisiana.
Yeah, this is unfortunate. So apparently, a father, he's 34 years old. He has a daughter who is 14, and a 17-year-old young man is infatuated with his daughter, and apparently sneaks up into the daughter's room. From the article, it seems like the father might have told them, "Hey, you can't date my daughter," things like that. And
okay, hold on. Let's put it into perspective. Okay, this is a 17-year-old teenage boy, almost an adult,
right?
And the girl in question, the girl involved in this,
is 14.
Right. I would be in that same boat.
Right.
As a father, I'd be like, you ain't dating my daughter.
Exactly.
Ain't gonna happen. Sorry.
So, it seems like the father knows about like what was going on prior to this incident. And that's why, and then the boy climbs into the window later on at another date. So he's made aware that this 17-year-old is in the room with his daughter. So he confronts this boy. Apparently it sounds like the girl leaves the room and he's having like a man-to-man conversation with this kid. And during that situation, the boyfriend draws a firearm and shoots the dad. It's a little crazy, because it's not something that's dynamic. Like he comes through the window and the dad shoots him. It's not like a gunfight that they got into, out on the porch. It seems to me that this guy was having like a heart to heart, like, "Hey dude, you're 17, my daughter's 14. It's not going to happen." And the boy, flips out, takes a gun out and shoots him. Father ends up dying, which is really sad. And I'll let you kind of get into the lessons learned in this one, but I just want to kind of tee it up for you.
Yeah. I don't know what more you could say about this one, right? I mean, this is a messed up situation.
Yeah.
You clearly have this young man who is very much interested in this young lady, and perhaps she really likes him too and wants him to be in her life, regardless of what dad says. But that's actually irrelevant, right? Dad has made his and mom. It sounded like mom and grandma were on the same side as the dad here.
Right.
They take the daughter to the side and are trying to, hey, look, sweetie, like this isn't okay. He's too old for you. You can't be sneaking into the house at night, on all that kind of thing. And it's while they're doing that dad is trying to hash things out with this young man, and that escalates and turns into this fight and a gunfight. It's unusual that the 17-year-old boy would be carrying a gun. It's obviously he was breaking the law in carrying a gun of his own on his person. He's underage. He obviously is not the type of young man that I'd want hanging around any of my kids, judging by the fact that he's carrying a gun with him.
Right.
But how do you, I just don't know that there's any other way that you could see this one going, as far as like, how could this man foresee that this boy was carrying a gun?
Right.
How could he foresee that he was going to draw that gun and turn this into a gunfight? I mean, yeah, like I don't live my life expecting 16, 17-year-old boys that my kids may be involved with to be packing heat around with them. So that's just an assumption that never crosses my mind. So, and we don't know a whole lot about the specifics of, what led up to the actual shots being fired, what was known, what was seen, what was said. Yeah, so I guess all that to say that I don't know what more analysis we could do on this one. So that's probably not a whole lot helpful for folks, but this does present, I see this story as being one of those examples that, like, it just forces you to question what you know in your current world and worldview, because it's one of those things that is out of the norm for sure. And so I just take it as a lesson, like, things can happen anywhere, anytime, when you even the stuff that you would never imagine would happen, including when you least expect it. So you got to be sharp. You got to be dialed in and switched on and ready for anything.
Yeah.
And I would say the same applies here as it does in so many of the other incidents that we cover in the show, of de-escalation and avoidance is always a good idea. And that would be hard for me as a father who's trying to defend his 14-year-old daughter, to not be upset with this young man. Right? But getting upset with him is going to escalate things. So I don't know, interesting things to consider there.
Yeah. I mean, we can extrapolate this all the way out, like our roles as fathers and in the family, and taking care of our kids and trying to get them to understand that there are people that are they seem very good, and you might like them, or you might be, infatuated with them, but there are people out there that are very devious, whether or not they're carrying a gun or not. But, and so we got to get our kids to kind of, I don't know. It's hard, because obviously this boy was misguided, or, to be even considering doing this, right? Like, why does he have a firearm and he's going to this girl's room and all kinds of stuff? But as fathers, we got to take care and make sure that, the influences that are around our kids and our family are the right influences. And it seems like he was trying to do that. And it's just unfortunate that this happened, because it's sad. It seems like they were trying to do what a reasonable parents would do for their kid. So,
yeah. Yeah. And it's a good reminder and encouragement to me as well to, hey, love your kids and be a part of their lives. I'm not saying this person was a bad father or bad mother to their daughter and didn't, understand her, what she was going through. Because sometimes kids do stuff
sure,
no matter what.
Mhm.
That's just the way life is sometimes. But it's just good encouragement. Like, hey, know your kids and know what they're into, what they're up to, who they're associating with. Be a part of their lives. Be there for them. Make sure that that they know of that love that you have for them, and that you care for them, and that you're there for them, and that they can come to you with issues and problems and concerns, and that you're not their enemy. You're trying to help them live their best lives and become good people, good adults eventually. It's anyway. Yeah. Going on now to an article from the Washington Post. This one happened in Woodbridge, Prince William County. I think that's in Maryland. I could be wrong, but I think that's a Maryland county. Either way, this is kind of in the greater DC area, from what I understand. So the way this went down is this is a homeowner, female homeowner. She's 44 years of age. She's actually exiting her home to go someplace. And as she was leaving her home, she saw a stranger. By the way, this happened. It was in the early morning hours. It was after midnight. So this is late. It is dark. Most people aren't going places, at that time of night, but sometimes, you do. Or maybe you work a late shift, overnight shift. Maybe you're a nurse, doctor, whatever, right? But 44-year-old woman leaving her home, and a stranger who was wearing a mask and armed with a handgun approached her, coming to her from the side of her house. She happened to also be armed with a gun. She drew and shot the man as he came toward the front door. Officers arrived. They found he had a loaded handgun. He was taken to a hospital, but he did later die. The woman was not hurt. And the case is still under investigation. But, it would seem that this was a pretty clear-cut case of self-defense. It does not appear that this woman is in danger of being charged with anything. And when police were asked, but in a statement, they said to address the question of why the man was there at the residence, all they said is the incident does not appear to be random, but little information as to what exactly that means. There you go. Pretty clear cut case of self-defense. Not a ton of details again, but what are the main highlights here? Late at night, dark, going outside the home. Man approaches armed with weapon. Woman does what she needs to do, and thank goodness she was carrying her gun with her at that moment. She was able to successfully defend herself without injury to herself or anyone else. So that's I gotta applaud her for a remarkable job in this case.
Yeah. And it's just, we don't know the details about where she was going and if she knew this guy was coming or not. It says a stranger. So, but to your point is when we're leaving our home, sometimes we can, or getting home, right? Like we're getting out of our car. Once we hit our driveway or wherever we are, sometimes we can be like, okay, now I'm switched off, or I'm not going to switch on until I get my car and I'm drive off. And now I'm paying attention. But while I'm around my house, I'm not really paying much attention. Right.
How?
And so, this is one of those reminders of be aware, because you may be taken, get caught off guard because you're just exiting your home or you're just getting home. And we see this all the time where criminals are waiting. They follow a person home, and as they're walking up to their door, then they rush in and they hold them at gunpoint, force them into the house and all that. So this is a little bit of a reversal, but yeah. And also the awareness, she recognizes a stranger from a distance away that gave her the opportunity to have the option to use her firearm. If she wouldn't have been aware of her surroundings and wouldn't have been identifying, looking at people that are walking towards her on the street when she's leaving at night, perhaps she doesn't perceive this quickly enough. And this person has the jump on her to be able to do what he wants before she can get the gun in the fight. So I thought awareness and just, having the gun with you and not being completely checked out was really good in this situation.
Yeah, great points, great observations, Matthew. I was just thinking about how, particularly late at night, I might be a little bit more lax with this during the daytime, but I
Mhm.
do still try to maintain this as a habit. But essentially, anytime I go out, go out the door of my home, I do try to. We have kind of one of those windows that's mostly, it's got some kind of, I don't know, designed glass, whatever. Like, but there's little pockets in that window you can use to look out and see what's out front. And we also have a peephole, so but I'm tall enough. I just look through that top upper window and kind of, I just like to peek out there before I step outside. Because like stuff happens all, like we've covered other stories certainly like this where someone's like, oh, just going outside, going to my car, and wham, all of a sudden they're being ambushed by somebody, in a robbery or whatever. So think about these things and have procedures in place to minimize risk and maximize your safety. I mean, a lot of these things don't take a lot of effort. You just have to be consistent in how you apply such tactics. So
Yeah.
let's go now to Fox News again. California homeowner shoots would-be burglars, 1 dead and 1 injured. This happened in Gwenda, California. I assume that's how you pronounce it. Matthew, tell us how did this one go down?
Yeah. Okay. So this is interesting on a couple different points. Just some of the statements that are made by law enforcement and some of the phraseology in the article. But basically, this is what happens. Shortly after 9 p.m., the homeowner sees headlights in his driveway. The article says, which gave him time to get his firearm and stand ready when the suspects tried to break in. I don't know if this guy assumed somebody was coming to rob him, or maybe he has a long driveway and, he's not expecting anybody. In any event, he sees something outside that indicates, hey, I should start readying myself for whatever reason, because I either don't know these people, not expecting them, or they could be a threat. And so he gets his firearm. Intuition is correct, and these guys this couple ends up breaking in, forcing entry into the home, and he shoots both of them while they're inside the home. One of them dies, one of them is injured and survived. Which in and of itself, this is not a very unique situation. However, I thought it was interesting that he was able to see something indicated, so the headlights, right? We talk about having some sort of layer of, notification, so you aren't responding to somebody in your home all of a sudden, right? Like whether it's a Ring doorbell or it's dogs that bark or something that cues you like, hey, something is outside that maybe I should, be aware of. And then as this is kind of a running theme through a couple of the stories, even the sheriff here, the lieutenant says he did not go out to confront these people. He stayed in the house, and eventually these people came into the residence. So this is one of those things where, he didn't say, oh, okay, I see headlights out there, I'm going to get my gun and go inspect, right? Go find out what's going on and see what their deal is. And, it ended up, he got to a position in the home that he could defend, and he defended it, which was perfect. Just something strange in the article. It says the firearm that was believed to have been used was legal to possess under California law, apparently talking about the homeowner. So, this is like, I'm reading that and I'm like, this guy just defended himself against 2 people that, came in to try to harm him. And they're concerned about, is that like a gun that's on California's approved list? It was like, all right. But,
Yeah.
but anyways, it was a good story, and I just wanted to pull those little nuggets out, and I'm sure you can find more stuff, Riley, that stood out to you.
Yeah. That silly handgun roster concept out of California, regardless of the legality of the actual use of self-defense, deadly force here. Well, we better double check that gun and make sure it's legal,
Right.
And he very well could have walked with no charges on the deadly force usage, but been charged with something for having an illegal gun if he, in fact, had had one that wasn't California approved. So
like an SBR or something like that, or
oh geez, don't even get me started, bro.
Just
Yeah, awesome. Good job covering the story. I appreciated the fact that in this story, because we don't often see statements like this, and this came from the lieutenant of the county sheriff's office when he said he did not go out to confront these people. So contrasting that with some other stories that we've just covered, I thought that was pretty remarkable, and remarkable that it was, number one, stated by the sheriff's office and also actually noted in the in the reporting on it. So he did not go out to confront these people. He stayed in the house, and eventually these people came into the residence. I think this homeowner did a remarkable job. Let's be clear here. I understand that nobody wants damage or harm to come to their property. And in many or most states, you have the right to defend property. To be clear, not necessarily with deadly force. Okay, like for instance, in Colorado, there's a statute that permits reasonable use of physical force to defend property, not to include deadly physical force, but it just specifies reasonable a level of physical force to defend property. Okay, so I recognize that that is our property. Okay, someone's on our property, somebody's doing something to my property, somebody's trying to steal my car, whatever it is. I have the right to try to defend that. Okay, that right should be cherished and it should exist. But tactically speaking, staying indoors, staying in a secure area, okay, within your home is the smarter choice almost every time. And this homeowner got that. Okay, tactically speaking, I know the layout of my home. I know where I can take effective cover and have good vantage points of tactical areas and positions in my home. That gives me the advantage that if and when somebody breaks my home's boundaries and comes in, I have the advantage. I control that space. I control that domain. That is a powerful position to be in. And that is one of the big reasons why we're so big on preaching the concept of, in most cases, stay put, secure the home, take up a position of cover and of advantage inside that home. Wait for them to come to you, because you will almost assuredly win if you are prepared and you have that tactical advantage inside your home. You will almost assuredly win in the gunfight that may occur, and you will almost certainly win in the legal fight that could occur afterward as well, in the aftermath. Mm-hmm. So I know what tactic I most likely will pursue. Anyway, moving on. This homeowner did fantastic. Bravo to him. Going now to Los Angeles, actually. This is kind of an interesting one. And it's not an actual news story, although there is a statement from the LAPD. And of course, by the way, guys, links to all the stories we're covering today and everything that we're sharing on the episode are in the show notes. Okay. The show notes. If you don't know what that means, if you go to concealedcarry.com, if that's where you found this podcast episode or whatever, when you click on the post, okay, just like, it'll appear like it's an article, but it's really just a post with the podcast audio and then the show notes below that. And the show notes, we include links to our sponsors, and we include the links to the news stories that we share in these episodes. For those of you on podcast listening applications on your mobile devices and things, it's going to vary from application to application, but a lot of times by tapping on the podcast logo itself when you're actually listening to and playing the episode, a lot of times that'll bring up show notes. Sometimes swiping up will bring up show notes. Sometimes it's a different button altogether. You're going to I can't speak to every application, so you'll have to just figure out how to access the show notes on your podcast app. But we include the links to all these stories. And I'll mention that there are also links to additional stories in today's episode that we're not covering. We're not, because we just don't have the time to talk about all of them, but we're throwing in some bonus links to other justified save stories in the show notes of today's episode. So check out the show notes to see all this. The news release from LAPD is titled "Brazen Daytime Robbery Captured on Video." The LAPD is and this happened in Wilshire. This is the Wilshire division, so that part of the city of Los Angeles. They're asking for public's help in finding the victim and witnesses to assist in this attempted robbery where shots were fired by the victim. So there's video that goes along with this. Let me just give you the details real quick, and then I'm going to pull up video for those of you that are viewing on Facebook and YouTube with us live today or after the fact. For those of you that are only listening to the audio, again, if you go to the show notes, you'll be able to pull up the link, and it's a link to YouTube where you can watch the video here. On Monday, July 19th, around 7:10 p.m., two suspects exited from an idling Dodge Avenger near Melrose Avenue and Vista Street and confronted the victim with a handgun in hand. Words were apparently exchanged, and the victim ultimately produces a handgun, apparently to defend himself and others in his group from the would-be robbery suspects. The victim fired his weapon towards the suspects, and then all parties immediately fled the location. The suspects who attempted the robbery were apprehended by officers a short time later and found to have suffered non-life-threatening gunshot wounds. And then the press release goes on to identify who those suspects were. One of them, this is kind of note, one of them was shot in the upper left thigh. The other one was shot in their right calf. And then it says that LAPD is aggressively addressing a rise in violent crime in the Melrose area over the past year and is pursuing all leads involved in this and other crimes. So it is noteworthy. Yeah, Mark, a guy in WeHo had a gun on him. Wow. That's why I think they're also looking for the victim, and also why the victim probably has not volunteered himself in this incident, because I'm going to go ahead and show those of you that are watching with us now. I'm going to go ahead and share with you the video, and you'll see this. The victim in this case drew his gun from concealment. And those of you that know, it is dang near impossible to get a concealed carry permit in Los Angeles. So unless you are a who's who, like I was joking with Matthew before we went live, unless you're like J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez, or Gavin Newsom or somebody, like you're not getting a permit in LA, in LA. So most likely this dude is carrying this gun concealed unlawfully. He may be a criminal himself, and for obvious reasons does not wish to identify himself. I have this actually playing at half speed for those watching. But here's the first thing I want to note. You'll see that this silver car actually backs out of what appears to be a parking space and just sort of swings behind where these three individuals are standing talking. Two women and one male. The man is holding looks like a shopping bag of some kind. All right, they're just standing there talking about who knows what. And this car pulls up close to them. It's like 6 feet away from the furthest away woman there. And it just stops there, right? That should always like at least get our attention. Now you do see that they have the faces blurred out on these people. But I believe you see them turn and actually acknowledge the fact that this car is there and has pulled it behind them. In fact, you see right there as the door opens, the woman in black immediately turns her head and she's looking, and everyone else is looking to see what's going on. Hey, what is this car doing? Why did they park right there all of a sudden? Why are they now exiting their vehicle? Yeah, all clues, right? And then you see the cars open, or the two car doors open. Two males get out. And the one wearing looks like a black hoodie or something, he immediately starts reaching for his waistband. Boom. Tell right there, right? Like he's reaching for a weapon. That's pretty apparent. The other male is getting out. It's a little unclear, but it kind of looks to me like he's holding also a gun or a weapon down by his side, but he never actually really points it at them. The male in the black hoodie or whatever, he reaches immediately for his waistband, starts pulling out his handgun, pulls it up in a funny grip. He's actually using his support hand to he's holding his bicep muscle with his support hand. He's one-handedly pointing this gun at them, and it's like he's holding his support hand there for support, I guess. Kind of a funny little, he's not holding out gangsta style. He's holding the gun upright, but he's just using an interesting support hand grip, if you will. He points the gun at them. The women see this, and they immediately take off. Kudos to them. They're like, I'm out. I'm gone. And the blonde-haired woman, she's the first one. She knows something is going on right about here at this point. This is as the one man is reaching for his waistband. The blonde-colored hair woman, she is out. She knows right away something's going down. So good for her. The woman wearing black is a little bit behind that. It's finally when the gun comes out that she starts stepping back and away. The other thing I want to point out is that the man, the victim, the male victim here, it's clear to me that he recognizes what's happening as well. Around the same time, sees the robber reaching for his waistband, and the male victim drops his shopping bag. So we were just talking about this yesterday, Matthew, about carrying stuff and needing to use your gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this man clearly recognizes what's happening, drops his bag of goods, and starts reaching for his own weapon. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that he draws out of his pocket with his non-dominant hand the pistol, and then exchanges hands with the gun, and then, meaning that he draws it with his left hand, puts it in his right hand, and then shoots. Am I reading this wrong?
Yeah, it's hard.
We're looking at his back, to be clear, right? But let me play this through. Here he's dropping the bag. Watch. Something comes out of his left pocket with his left hand, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. It looks to me like he pulls the gun out with his left hand, but then he's shooting with his right hand. Am I seeing that right?
No, that looks like that's what happened. And at first I thought it was one of those. It almost looked like one of those full conceal blocks. Because it was
maybe it was
looked long. I don't know.
That's
looked
actually
like
a really interesting point. Maybe this is the first recorded instance of a full conceal pistol, folding pistol.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It looked because it did look like it was like a long black object. It didn't look like a hand. It just didn't look like he was handling it like you would handle a firearm.
Right. And there's some amount of time from the time he pulls whatever out of his pocket to when he actually finally is able to use it. It's almost as if I wondered if he was chambering it, but maybe it is one of those full conceal deals.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting, actually. Being used by a criminal, most likely in this case, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, and he's definitely doing something after he pulls it out of his pocket, whether he's chambering around or whether he's unfolding it or what. Yeah,
because he takes a moment, he starts stepping, he takes 1.5 steps to the rear as he's getting the gun ready, and then boom, 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 and he fires off 4 shots. By the way, first shot almost certainly looked like a hit. The second shot looked like it went between the man's legs. It looked like maybe that fourth shot, which is, by the way, the third and fourth shot are basically fired as the man is turning and running. The third shot looks like it's completely wild. The fourth shot's also completely wild, but I think he just got lucky and maybe hit, because you actually see the second robber, at that precise moment that the man fires his fourth shot, he kind of kicks his feet up like he just got hit or something.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? Woo, woo, mm-hmm. Ah, man, I just got shot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So interesting incident. Now, what's interesting to me with this is, again, it's almost certain that the victim in this case is a criminal by the fact that he's carrying a gun concealed in Los Angeles, and there's very, very few people that have permit to do so. But his use of deadly force in self-defense is technically legal.
Right.
I mean, at least in my eye, right? I don't know that that's how Los Angeles will view it, but because he may be a felon in possession of the gun, so he's using that gun illegally, and maybe they try to tack on the some shooting charges as well. I don't know, but I think the use of self-defense, I think this is a great example of actual self-defense, justified self-defense, It just probably was being done by somebody illegally concealed carrying, which
Yeah.
is, I think, unfortunate, frankly. I
Yeah.
think it's insanely stupid that that so many counties in California don't make it easier for people to get permits.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned it. We talked about it yesterday, and that's kind of why I brought that specific one up yesterday. I couldn't remember if we had covered it, but like you see him shooting with one hand, kind of just punching it out there and shooting, and letting some rounds just fly, and it looks to me that this might be like an apartment building, a parking lot or something. So who knows where those rounds are going, right? We haven't heard anything like, innocent people were injured, but certainly they could. So this is one of those things where like, like you gotta be able to make these shots. And imagine if those two people who he's standing with aren't, are his family members or a little child that, so it just makes it so much more complex of a situation about, do you get involved? Do you comply or what's going on? Like you gotta evaluate that.
Yeah.
He did good. I'm not second guessing. I'm just saying if we looked at this and applied it to many different scenarios.
Yeah. Well, the shooting was a little bit wild. So again, lack of accountability for shots. We touched on that in yesterday's episode as well.
Yeah.
I think the people involved here did, like, could we maybe have recognized a few warning signs a little bit earlier, maybe started moving a little bit sooner? Yeah, we could always make that case. But overall, they recognized what was happening fairly early on. Before the gun was actually pointed at them, they recognized something was up and it's time to move. That was good. And actually, let's be clear, the bad guys, at least according to the statement from the LAPD and also from the video evidence that we see, they never got a shot off.
Nope.
So like this dude drew on a drawn gun and won. Anyway, interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Matthew, we got to wrap it up here. Kind of hitting that hour mark. But we have one more story. Why don't you tell us about it? Again, we got Houston, Texas here. And this says East Houston resident describes shooting with car thieves. This is a wild one. And this was reported on abc13.com.
Yeah. So another common thread here. So a resident is driving down his neighborhood street, sees people that he believes are breaking into vehicles. So he shines his headlights, puts the high beams on these kids or these people, hoping that they will, take off. Oh, somebody sees us, let's run. Which oftentimes people think that, see somebody outside in their home, I'm going to go confront them. Maybe I'll scare them off. I'll go, hey, what are you doing? And they'll run off. Well, in this case, in this situation, it doesn't work that way. They actually attack this guy, start shooting at him. So I can only imagine, a bunch of kids or people breaking into a car and then turning around and, you think, okay, I'm going to beat the horn, flash my lights, and they're going to run off. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, they're like charging me with and shooting at me. So he ends up pulling out his own firearm and starts shooting back. It says he chased him all the way down the street. So nobody was hit by any gunfire. It doesn't say how many rounds were fired or anything like that. Suspects aren't in custody. We don't know if any arrests have been made since this or any identification of the suspects. But it's one of those things where, you don't probably think that that's what's going to happen when you shine your headlights on somebody trying to break into a car or something, but it does. So another cautionary tale of what are you going to get involved in? Not saying that this guy had any, did anything illegal or necessarily wrong, but it didn't go how he probably had it in his mind. Thank God he had his firearm with him, because he might not have made it out of there.
What's interesting here is the good guy is in his vehicle in his truck, and he's honking his horn and flashing lights, thinking that's gonna, hey, I see you, I know you're there, and like that'll be enough to scare him off. Like he's in his vehicle, but it talks about how he starts shooting back. So he's either shooting through his windshield, But when he talks about they chased him down the street to the walking trail, makes me think that he got out of the truck, and likely when he started returning fire back at them, and then they chase him down to the walking trail, and eventually, of course, he's able to, hey, look, the man defended himself and was successful in that he didn't get hurt, so that's good. And supposedly none of the suspects were struck by gunfire. It does say a vehicle was damaged by bullets in the course of all of this. That is probably the most concerning thing of this whole thing is, good guy was shooting at these guys, and according to the news story, it says nobody was hit by gunfire. So where did good guy's bullets go? Just something to consider.
Yeah.
And hey, again, we've already hit on it enough today. Staying inside our homes where it's secure and we have the tactical advantage. But this guy went out. He's in his truck. That's a reasonable, safe position to be in. Like that's better than just being out in the open. Maybe it would have been smarter to stay in his vehicle. Maybe it would have been smarter when they started shooting at him to try to run him down. I don't know. Or at least, drive the truck evasively to escape rather than stepping outside the vehicle and trying to engage in a gun battle that way. I don't know. We don't know all the details. We don't know all the whys. We didn't see what happened. Maybe there was a good reason why he did what he did. These are just all relevant questions to ask. In our vehicle tactics, our vehicle firearm tactics video course that you can watch and buy on our website, or Guardian Nation members get full free access to it as well. We talk about, when we are involved in incidents that involve a vehicle, the first thing we got these 4 principles that we encourage you to, these are kind of like the 4 rules, if you will, like kind of think through your way through these things. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time at all, but like just recognize, like, first, if I can evade the situation using, in my vehicle, if I can drive away, in other words, like that's almost always going to be your best tactical advantage or tactical decision. Number 2 would be to consider using the vehicle potentially as a weapon, right? Number 3 would be to I'm forgetting something somewhere. Crap. I know, driving away, evading, right? Using the vehicle as a tool, essentially, of defense.
Or as cover.
What's that?
Are you talking about using the vehicle as cover as well?
Well, absolutely. That's always an option, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that you always like, it should be the last thing that you consider doing, and that is exiting the vehicle and trying to fight outside the vehicle. Like, oh wait, it's fight. Oh, that's what it is. Fighting from inside the vehicle is a bad idea. That's what I mean. Okay, so like, preferably we don't get out of the vehicle and fight, but we'd rather fight outside the vehicle than from inside the vehicle, right? Does that make sense?
If you have to.
So let me clarify that. I was getting a little bit lost in my thought process there. So number 1 is to just get away with the vehicle. Hey, vehicles move fast. They cover a lot of ground very quickly. That's always our best choice, to use the vehicle if we had the option to do so. Just get the heck out of there, right? Number 2, use the vehicle itself as, whether we're ramming a person's vehicle that's trying to hurt us, whether we're trying to hit somebody with the vehicle, or use it to get them to break off their attack, right? But of course, we need to have justification to do so, because we start using that vehicle as a weapon. That's a deadly weapon, just like the gun is. Okay, so there's got to be justification for it. But I'd rather use the vehicle as a weapon than use my gun as a weapon if I have the option, if I have the choice. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Sure.
Number 3 is, if I can't use the vehicle as a weapon and I can't evade or escape, then I should try to get out of the vehicle and fight from outside the vehicle, or escape by foot outside the vehicle. Okay. But the last resort is fighting from inside the vehicle, because we're trapped in there. We're more confined. We have to shoot through windows, and that's going to result in less effective hits on target and things like that. Right. So those are the 4 priorities. So I'm sorry, I kind of bungled that in the beginning. So anyway, just some things to think about there. This guy obviously made the choice at some point to exit the vehicle and fight from outside the vehicle. either way, he lived to tell the tale, and good for him. But just, some things to think about there.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, guys, we need to wrap it up. We do have our weekly prize giveaway for podcast listeners. We need to announce this week's winner. This week, by the way, we're giving away a Flight 93 511 tactical ball cap. These are commemorative, by the way, guys. These are basically 10 years old now this year. There's not many of them left out there. We still have some left. I don't have one handy right now, or I'd show it to you, but it's a cool commemorative design that 511 Tactical did in 2011 to remember and commemorate 9/11 and victims of 9/11. And it even says right on there, never forget. Okay. But it's like a logo of the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and then of course where the plane went down in Pennsylvania, Shanksville, Pennsylvania as well. So really cool. Never forget Flight 93 ball cap from 511 Tacticals. We're one lucky winner. That's the winner. That's the prize this week. Guys, the podcast prize we do each week, you got to sign up each week. It runs from Monday to Monday. Each week, go to concealedcarry.com/podcast prize to make sure you sign up each week. Who is the lucky winner this week of a never forget Flight 93 ball cap?
Today's winner is Devin M.
Devin M. Yeah. Awesome. Congratulations, Devin, on winning this awesome hat. I've got a couple of them, and I love them, and always wear one on September 11th, actually. So,
and let me just add in, if you guys enter the giveaway, please check your spam folder, because sometimes people don't respond to my emails, and then they'll respond. We give them 72 hours. You have 72 hours once we pick your name, and send you the email. But I'll get an email, 2 weeks later. Sorry, your email went to spam. So if you know that you're in the drawing, just check your spam, because I don't know, Google hates my email address or something, yep. Sends it to spam often.
Yep. Good tip. And by the way, guys, next week we are giving away a free palm pepper spray unit. I don't have mine on me right now, and I usually have one here next to me, but it doesn't really matter. Palm pepper spray, little, compact, portable, easy to use, effective OC spray unit. We're going to give one of those away free, as long as it's legal in your state or jurisdiction, which there's only I think it's like New York City or New York State or something where we can't send these, but most likely most of you will be eligible to win the palm pepper spray unit. Guys, remember, sign up at concealedcarry.com/podcast prize. One last reminder and shout out to our episode sponsors today, XS Sites. You can find them at xssites.com, and the Legal Boundaries by State book, available at concealedcarry.com/gun law book. With that, we're going to let you go. Matthew, thank you for doing this episode with me, brother.
Thank you, sir. And thank you guys for listening.
Everybody, we will remind you to train right, train often, and train safe so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care.